again for your time, mate. Are we enjoying the heat wave that we're currently experiencing?
Cheers, David. Yeah, I've had a good weekend. Been to a festival and a wedding, so I have been out enjoying it. Having a bit of a downtime this morning, but yeah, it's good to chat to you, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much again for coming on. I seen on your Instagram you was busting some moves on the dance floor.
I was, man. It's good when the work you're putting in pays off, and you can, you know, breakdancing tricks I used to do 15 years ago are still available to me when I've not done them in years. It's quite nice.
It's fantastic. Speaking of tricks, the reason why I wanted to talk to you today primarily is about the way of the rope. Um, I bought my first rope. I bought in November 2020, so we was pretty much in lockdown at that point. I seem to remember.
Yep.
Bought the rope, and basically off the back of watching you on Instagram, and I was mesmerized by the floor patterns and the movement of yourself doing rope floors. It reminded me of like samurai warriors wielding swords, maybe staffs and bows, and I immediately was resonated by that. So to admit, I just wanted to do it for the tricks, really. So I'll be straight honest with you off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
But very soon, trying to learn the tricks, the novelty kind of wore off with the tricks, and now the rope forms a really integral part of my warm up for jiu-jitsu before I lift weights. And I've kind of stripped it all back now. And really, it's just primarily looking at the underhand roll and really just concentrating on feeling the movement. And my first kind of question, Tim, is why is that movement so valuable? And why does it kind of feel so good in that pattern?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment of how many people come to the rope. Is in the beginning, it might be drawn by looking at the tricks. But what's going on internally with the rope flow practice is so much more profound than what anyone can ever visually gather until you've embodied it yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm the same as you, where I've gone down seeking, all these sneaks and these different tricks, which they absolutely have their place.
Yeah.
But what I come back to is just enjoying the underhand pattern as much as any other trick.
Yeah.
And primarily it's because what it does is it puts the body on this figure of eight, or like a horizontal figure of eight. So it's the infinity symbol. It forces us to go on this path. Now we can find this pattern without the rope, but because the ropes, it keeps us so honest because it's there and it's this big bit of feedback that's swinging each side of our body. We have to move out of the way of the rope.
Yeah.
So if we don't move out the way, it's going to hit us. And because we're having to move out the way and we're well aware it's there, and we've probably hit ourselves many times before, we've learned how getting at where out of the way is and how it feels. As we're getting out of the way on the right side, and then we're swinging it over to the left, and we're getting out of the way on the left side, it just greases the groove of this infinity pattern. Sorry about that. When it does that, all of our joints, but the shoulder, the wrist, the rib cage, which one of the things we can get into, I guess, is when we're moving locomotively, the rib cage should also move on this figure of eight pattern where the shoulders don't just stay level the whole time. One will drop and then drive forward, and the other will go back and then down and drive forward. Yeah. And the rope just teaches us this pattern. And the more we can kind of grease that into our bodies and into our movement patterns, primarily for either, martial arts and running, it just does so much more than just looking like a guy swinging a bit of rope, because it's muscle memory. It's working the fascia at its end ranges because there's rotation going on. We're not just in a yoga pose, you might stretch your arm out like that, but we're actually rotating. And if you see even the forearm, you can see that the muscle wraps around it like a rope winds. And so we're starting to wring out and maximize the end range of that. So all the joints are getting utilized to their full potential.
Yeah.
As well as learning good patterns that we can use in all of the practices. And I mean, I've not delved into jiu-jitsu myself, but I'd love to hear, maybe you're going to talk about that later, but how you feel it in your practice there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's a beautiful way of putting it, greasing the groove. I've come across that phrase a few times. And
Pavel, the King Kettlebell guy, is the guy I heard it from the most. Pavel.
Yeah, Pavel. Yeah, Satsulin. How do you pronounce his surname? Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, Suzuki. I don't know. I get it way wrong, so I don't try.
And you use a beautiful phrase as well of working in. So rather than the rope can form a workout, but using the rope to work in, which is a lovely way of expressing the movement patterns, and it's just used as a bit of a floor just to get those joints greasing the groove, as you put it.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed with your particular movement, and obviously I'd love to hear, by the way, what clicked in your mind with your knowledge of biomechanics and all that when you first held the rope and you first started to roll it. It was David Weck, am I correct in saying that, who introduced you to it? What clicked in your mind? How did what was it that really sort of filled the gap?
Yeah, I mean, I was still fairly new on my biomechanics journey, but not totally new. That I was quite aware of how important it was to look at locomotion, how we walk and run, as the blueprint for everything else. Not that it's just everything kind of stems from that as a baseline. So anytime we can work on that as a baseline, we can benefit everything else to some degree. And so when I learned from David Weck, I flew out to San Diego to do my WMQ2, and I'd looked at other practices like functional patterns, and I'd done years of yoga and Pilates, and I've got a history in parkour and free running and breakdancing, and I've done obstacle course racing and marathon racing and CrossFit, and I've gone to all these different things. I'm yet to start my martial arts journey, and if I do, it would be jiu-jitsu, because I don't like the thought of damaging people, physically trying to, whereas jiu-jitsu can be more playful in that. So I'd been down all these different avenues of sport and some looking at biomechanics, but not totally scientifically. I'm just expressing it with parkour or whatever I'm doing. And so when I picked up the rope, and it was an actual light bulb moment for me, that I don't think everyone has that same light bulb moment, but some people that their passions and desires are in that kind of right thing, and their mind is wired that kind of way. They pick up the rope and they feel what's happening, and they feel this pattern getting embodied and downloaded into their body. And you're like, wow, and then you start to tap into it without the rope. And it really is one of the most profound moments I've ever experienced in my movement career, basically. And it's weird because it took me away from yes, it can be seen as show off tricks or whatever, but fundamentally the simplest pattern that we talk about is the underhand. And I've got a history with parkour and doing fancy tricks and flips off of walls, and then people are see me do that, and they'll see me swinging a rope, and they're like, well, Tim's step down a bit. And it's it takes a bit of, I don't know, I guess it sounds like I'm bigging myself up, but it is a humble practice. It takes and it is the journey of longevity. You get to your end of your 20s and start 30s, and you have to think about, most of us have to think about longevity. The ones that don't are the ones who naturally have got good biomechanics, for whatever reason that they've got to that stage. And so those of us that have had somewhat limited biomechanics because our mother walked a certain way and we copied how she walked, and now we've got bad knees because that pattern gets you bad knees over 20 years of walking that way. I had to think about these things. And so when I started to delve deeper and deeper, it took me to looking at patterns of movement. And there's just nothing I have found or comes close to the rope for training patterns of movement. Now, it's great for the upper body. The lower body, there's certain timing and things it does do good for the lower body, but that's a different journey I've been on as well, to get the ankles and knees strong.
I mean, talk about training for longevity. I turned 42 this year, and it's something that I've maybe should have thought about a bit earlier in terms of adapting my training to really think about training for many, many more years to come, because I want to carry on training, doing jiu-jitsu for many more years.
Of course. Currently, we should be able to.
Of course. And again, to your point, Tim, it takes a little bit of an ego check, doesn't it, to bring yourself back down and maybe put less weight on the barbell and concentrate more on form. Something that I never really thought about. I'm currently seeing physio at the moment. I've got tennis elbows on the inside. I think I'm correct in saying that. I'm experiencing a lot of tendonitis on the inside of my elbow. The physio's prescribed a lot of isometric holds to strengthen the tendon. And I don't know, you may have thought about it yourself, being a little bit more in tune with all these things, but I've never thought about, in my 20s and 30s, training my tendon strength at all. I just wanted to get bigger, get stronger, put as much weight on the bar as you can. Probably similar to a lot of people who may be listening to this. But even just training tendons, it's not going to look good in the mirror. And it takes a little bit of an ego check to come down and now think about training all those little things.
Yeah, that's exactly the same way of thinking, is that the exercises that we probably need the most are the ones that are the less appealing visually, both aesthetically, and then in the training process itself, they're not going to be as attractive to put on your Instagram, but they're, you know, what Bruce Lee's doing, you know, 1,000 punches a day or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's what we need to do sometimes if we are actually gonna pay the price of longevity and think about that stuff. It's like taking the ego check for sure.
Definitely. And there's kind of a wider message, like with yourself, who's, and I'm not saying you're just doing tricks for the sake of doing tricks, but it looks mesmerizing, it's proper cool doing the tricks, but that might get you the exposure on Instagram, but then through following your journey and the message that you're putting out, the actual foundation of that underhand, people will then start to be introduced to that. Whereas if you just put that maybe on Instagram, people might be like thinking, yeah, it looks all right, but it's not that fancy, is it? So maybe you need the fancy stuff to get that attention. A bit like I don't know if you follow the knees over toes guy.
Yeah, Ben Pat, I did 4 months of his programming.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
And he puts all his like tricks, for the want of a better term, on Instagram, but there's a deeper message, isn't there? But he needs that exposure to get that message to people of just walking backwards.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think what it is there's a lot, people are seeking a lot more integrity now, and organic like businesses, they want to support more, or they're just drawn to it more. And with what I'm trying to do, and Ben Patrick as well, is you have to represent what you're talking about. You know, you can't just be a physio in a lab coat saying do this and it's going to fix your kneecaps. And it's like, well, how do you run? How are you? You're talking about this is good for your kneecaps, but you can't even run yourself. Like, yeah. So there's been a growth of looking to coaches on Instagram. If you're going to follow people, practice what they preach, and what they preach is there's results in it. You know, the proof is in the pudding. And so when I looked at David Weck and saw how he moved, I'm like, well, you know, there's answers there that's to be gleaned when he's got a replaced hip, but I've met people with a replaced hip and they do not walk like that guy. That guy can move. So he's done something to stabilize and secure it. And then the patterns of movement, the timing, the sequencing between his upper body and lower body, the right and left hand, and even down to the preciseness of the wrist movement, to the, you know, he talks about infinitesimal accuracy, like, because we talk about infinity, but the infinitesimal is the minute, and he can like find a point in the air and rotate around that point without like flailing all over, because of the rope practice, he's got so precise down to the dexterity of his fingertips, you know. So looking at people like him, Ben Patrick, you cannot deny how that guy moves. So you're going to go, well, there's something to be learned from this guy, you know, if he can, and his results of, you know, jumping 19 inches to jumping 30 something or 40 something, maybe like doubling his height of his jump because of what he's doing. Well, you're going to listen to that guy if you want to be able to jump. So always look to people that are performing. And I think in jiu-jitsu, that's kind of like a given, right? You're going to listen to a black belt who's performed in a competition, or you can, you know, that it's a natural innate thing that we do in certain areas of our life. But when it comes to health and, you know, movement and physio stuff, well, you know, not to say that you can't learn things, because one of my best physios I've ever had, she's so focused on treating people that she doesn't necessarily move well herself, but she's given me bits of knowledge that I couldn't have got anywhere else. So there is knowledge to be had there, but it's having that discernment that you can't put too much value in that. And actually those that can express it are often ones we should listen to as well. And so that is part of why I put out the tricks and the movements to show that. But then fundamentally the teachings are simple, and they should always be quite simple if they're the ring true for all of humanity, you know.
Yeah, of course. I've just finished, well, I said just finished it a few months ago. I've just finished a book called Skin in the Game by Nassim Taleb. And don't get me wrong, that might make me sound like intelligent or whatever, but it was a hard read. I really struggled to grasp a lot of the concepts he was going on about. But sometimes I think it's good to have a book that pushes you intellectually and maybe is above and beyond your kind of level to push you.
Absolutely. I've heard of it, but I haven't read it. Yeah. You want to share any points from that?
One thing that I got from it was the title of the book is Skin in the Game. So giving people incentive was a big theme of the book, and having skin in the game. So to your point, you're doing what you're expressing and talking about, and you're not just telling people to do this rope, this figure of eight movement, this pattern. You're not actually doing it yourself. So it's about just people having skin in the game, which offers more integrity, like you said before. And it was one of the reasons why I offered to give a donation for you to come onto the podcast today.
Yeah.
So that's my putting skin in the game to try and offer you incentive to come onto the podcast. It is an interesting book, but I struggled with it. It's probably a little bit too above my my intellectual level.
It's motivated you to get out there, though. Like, you must have got some good insights from it. Yeah, and thank you for the donation, by the way. I appreciate that very much.
No problem. You're welcome. How have you found the knees over toes stuff? Has it been beneficial for you?
So I did the first 3 months is one program called Zero, and that's kind of foundational. And it was tough graft, it was 5 days a week, but I was motivated. I'd seen the results he had, and I wanted that for myself. And so I committed 12 weeks to doing that. And then I moved on to the next program. And then that's all body weight. And then you start to add weights. And I bought a Nordic bench and I was enjoying it, but it felt like there was too much focus on strength work for me. And I think there's what I feel like I've learned since is there's foundational levels before strength work comes into play. The progress I made, some of it is kind of stuck around for my knees, but it never helped. My bigger issue was my ankles,
right?
And it didn't help too much with my ankles, and so I had to move on to another program to try to solve that. And I moved on to GOTA and then Fluidity, and then I've developed my own thing now that's helped me more than any other program actually was able to find, which is interesting. When you actually you can solve your own problem. You've got all the power to solve your own problems. And that's what I've pretty much almost been able to do with my own exploration rather than fully relying on all these other systems in place. But yeah, there was that beneficial, and I'm grateful for the process. But overall, I think there's too much focus on strength work. And that's not the only solution to a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about your problem with your ankles, one thing that I noticed when I'm watching you on Instagram doing all these rope flows is the footwork is amazing, is impeccable, and that's probably something that does translate over to the running, coming up on the balls of your feet, and obviously they're connected to the knees and the hips. How important is the footwork in terms of these patterns with the rope?
For me, it's not fun without the footwork, because I want it to be a full body experience. And you can stand there and do the underhand, and you still get like the bob and weave of the timing of the knees and the ankles. But it's when you start to do the turns and the 180s and you can do 360s, but you don't really need to. But just the 180s, the 90-degree turns and the transitions between the patterns, this really teaches you. You just do it, because I remember when I went to Work Method, and Chris Chamberlain, he's WEC's basically #1 trained under WEC guy, and he's took it so much further, because he's in his 30s and an absolute. I think he swings like an 80-kilo kettlebell with one hand and does it's absolutely incredible when you watch his Instagram, Chris Chamberlain. So he really backs up the teachings that they work. And he just said, just keep turning, just keep going underhand to overhand, because I was like, what do I do with my feet? What do I do with my feet? He said, just keep doing it. And it really does. You don't need any coach to assess you and tell you what to do. I mean, that could help and speed it up, but you don't. The rope is the teacher. You just do there. You face that way, you swing it, you face that way, and you just do that over days and over days, and your brain works on it in the background. Like when I used to play video games, and you try a level over and over and over and you can't complete it, and then you go away and the next day you come back and the first try you complete it, and you're like, what's going on there? And so the brain kind of worked on it in the background, or you're able to relax and you were too tense or something. And the rope's like that. So I tell people to do 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, or in multiple sessions at different points in the day, rather than doing you can do an hour, and I've done plenty of hour, 2, 3, 4 hour sessions, but you can do 5-10 minutes, put it away, come back to it, and the body's kind of downloaded what it's learned and assessed it, and then it's smoother the next time. And so the footwork is a big part of that, because the rope is guiding the timing, and it's putting us in these balance points where the rib and the head kind of goes over the right foot, so I can then load onto that leg and then spring off onto the other leg and load. And so the footwork is what ties it all together. I've got an 8-week course with the rope, because I don't want the rope to go on forever. For me, it's like I put 3 or 4 months into the rope, and then I stop using it as much. I use it once or twice a week, but I still come in stints now where I'll use it every day, and then I won't use it for 3 months, and I'll use it every day for 2 months. And it's funny how it comes back. But the way I built the 8-week course was the first 2 weeks is all spine focused, because what we want to do is teach people that movement begins in the core, in the spine, and then it works out to the arms. Whereas most people are trying to do everything with their arms, and then they're not used to mobilizing the spine. So the first 2 weeks is all spine focused. Then it's 3 weeks of arm, we add the arms in. So the arms, the energy wave comes off the spine. I'm swinging, the energy spirals down the arm, down the rope, and then it comes into this arm and then down. And so when we run, there's these spirals with that. We're not just doing this. There's there's this slight turns with the hands and the wrists and shoulders that uses the fascial system in the body, which is the kind of Spider-Man suit that's on top of the muscles, but underneath the skin. We want to use the tension within this system. So the more we can like wrap and turn, the more actually maximizing the tension, which helps the whole system like spring and bounce. And so then we add the arms, and then the last final 3 weeks is we add the footwork to this. So it's the spine, the arms, then the feet on top. Because if you see like a tiger pounce, and this is one thing you see people do in the gym, is they'll try to, if you're doing like a thrust, say you're in squat and you're trying to push to overhead, you don't just push your legs and the hands at the same time. You drive with the legs, you get some momentum, and then you go with the hands. The same thing with rowing, right? You don't just push with the legs and pull with the arms. You push with the legs, go with the spine, then you pull. There's a sequence to movement that should happen. And this is what happens with the rope, and the footwork side of it is the rope's this expression, this magnifying glass of our movement. It highlights, because there's weight to it. We can feel viscerally like this highlighted movement going on in our hands. And then as we start to stand up with that, the feel of that rope, we find that sequencing of the lower body and the upper body and the arms working together, not at exactly the same time, but in this sequence. And the rope and the footwork helps us to find that sequencing, which we can then apply to footwork, whether it's martial arts, whether it's a golf swing, or whether it's running or parkour, then we can start to tune into this sequencing as well.
It's interesting. One of my other favorite kind of movement patterns to work on is that serve and the baseball bat. What's it called? The ace and the serve.
Home run. And
home run, that's it. Sorry, mate. Amazing, like movements just for that upper body, like the stretch around the side, and the footwork for that as well is just like the same as throwing the punch in it up on the balls of your feet.
Exactly.
Beautiful, really
so
nice.
That is one of the, exactly on that point you said, that side bend. This is one of the things that we, when I learned from Work Method, and that you just don't see when people train bilaterally, which is when they train both sides at the same time, which is a lot of the gym lifting, which is absolutely great and has its place. We also want to train one shoulder down, one shoulder up, because we've got all of this obliques on one side here. You've got the lat down here. Like, we want to get into, and I'm sure this is big in jiu-jitsu, right? Is like, protect the core.
Crunching,
But we're not always just here. If we go here, if we lift this, the more we lift this shoulder, the more we can sink this shoulder. And the rope just helps to guide that as we come through.
Definitely.
And it makes it easier to pivot from this side to this side if my shoulders are square. It's a lot of work, right? But if I dip the shoulder, I can come through so much smoother. So it helps guide us to that. And it's great alongside a bilateral practice, but we want to train the left side and the right side, and then that as well. And that's how we get, supple and strong. And I'm kind of obsessed with, I call it big cat training. Like, there's only few athletes you see that are jacked and supple and agile. And I'm like, there must be a way to get to this. And that's what I see with someone like Chris. And that's kind of the path. I wouldn't say I'm there yet, but I'm working to that position where I can be like the tiger who looks big and strong, but they can also move like a motherfucker. Like, they're always on point, like they're on balance. And there are these odd, like, American football athletes. There's a British footballer. I don't think he's British, but he played for Traore, and he was a big dude, but moves really agile. And I just think, how do we do it? And that's when it comes down to, it's not just strength training, man. It's pattern training, and it's security. Because if you're moving with big weights, you need to feel secure in your joints. So stabilization, patterns of movement, and then strength after that. But I think most of us missed the first two.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. It kind of reminds me of the Supple Leopard by, is it Kelly Starrett? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but that was, I went through that. I read that book. That's just a lot of stretching, and myofascial release, which is in the right ballpark. But I think there's steps before that comes into play.
Right. Yeah. The way I kind of use the rope and the way it resonates for me in terms of translating it to jiu-jitsu is your feet in jiu-jitsu and your legs are working like your arms. So when you're talking about the rope connects one side of the body to the other side of the body and gives that like full loop. Your left hand in jiu-jitsu might be doing something, but you're dropping like your right hip. So you're crunching on the right side, and your right leg is on the mat or hooking someone else's leg. So all your body, you need to understand where all your body is at any one time. So
yeah,
got to know your right hand's doing, but like your left hip is dropped and your foot might be hooked over. So it gives that kind of complete feedback loop, like you're talking about the rope.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, that's kind of how I interpret what the rope helps me do with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
you know what I
that
mean?
must be really cool though, because you're literally controlling four. I mean, I'm sure your head and stuff as well, but four main limbs. You're having to think about all four at any one time.
Yeah, and your head
how they can
as well. Your head's a frame as well that can be used.
Totally, yeah, and how you're connecting them either externally through the person, through the floor, or whatever to make things happen. So yeah, I guess the rope is a very similar expression of that, but just stood up with in our own time. Yeah,
and just the movement pattern with what we've previously spoke about, where you are starting to crunch over to the left maybe, and that's bringing your right shoulder up. And your point before about
if you want to do a sweep, right, like sweeps, you've got to drop to that.
Sure, you've got to drop underneath to get underneath someone, and then use your leg to act like a pendulum to pull someone over. So your upper body's working in tandem with the legs. And I heard someone, I can't remember actually who said it once, but they were kind of offering a bit of a short sentence as to what you should be trying to look for in jiu-jitsu to a very basic level is your hands should be your legs and your legs should work like your arms.
Yeah.
So your hands should be just framing like your legs would be to walk on in life, but then your legs are working like your arms. So your legs are the thing that is gripping like your hands, if that makes sense.
So the more you can do that, the more you're like gonna confuse. Just having control that people aren't used to. Like.
Yeah, of course, yeah. When you were saying about just spending a couple of minutes on the rope and then moving away from it, and then the next time you go back to it, something clicks. I had a similar experience myself in two. One related to the rope and one related to just nothing compared to the rope, just musical instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So doing the serve and volley with the rope, I kept trying at that and setting it up from is it the matador that you'd set that up from?
Yeah.
And then drag and roll and then serve.
Yeah.
And it took me ages to get that pattern down, and not even thinking about it. I just sacked it off one day, came back to it. And as soon as I picked up the rope the next day, I just did it. I don't know why, my body was just, something clicked, and it reminded me of the same way as, I don't know if you play any musical instruments.
I've played piano a little bit and guitar. I've tried to learn. I wouldn't say I play them, but I've experimented with them. Yeah.
A guitar, trying to play a bar chord in the guitar.
Mm.
You know, where your four fingers going across all the different strings on a fret.
Yeah.
So for ages, I didn't have the dexterity in my hands to get a bar chord, an F chord or whatever.
Mm.
Keep practicing, can't do it. And there must be something, I don't know what it is, that you go away from something, leave it, get it out of your mind. And I came back to it, and immediately my fingers recognized that bar chord pattern and immediately went to it. I can't explain what that is, but it's obviously repeating in different things, the rope, guitar. It's a way of learning, isn't it? There must be something in that, having that rest period, coming back to
something in the background. Yeah, just some background computing going off. Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of Andrew Huberman recently on his podcast, and everything is like related to a certain part of the brain. So I've kind of become dead obsessed. I wonder what part of the brain's firing there to remember that and forget that and pick that up.
Yeah, man. That I watched half of his talk.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tim. Can I just let the dog out 2 minutes?
Yeah, let him out. Get him gone.
Apologies, sorry.
That's all right. I listened to like half of his podcast with Ido Portal. I've not finished it yet, but that was really good to see someone from two completely ends of the spectrum, but just like coming together on a conversation like that.
Yeah. I mean, Ido's talking on another level that I can't comprehend what he's talking about a lot of the time. But
yeah, I think a lot of people feel that. I think that's the thing is with my practice is I see it as almost the other end of the movement spectrum to what Ido does. Although I'm sure his covers everything, so it's universal. But what I liked with David was it felt like I haven't, and now I can't speak like fully for the Ido stuff because I haven't done one of his courses or anything. But there's an organization to David Weck's teachings and movement that when we focus on locomotion, it naturally has to be organized a certain way.
Yeah,
that I see as kind of the opposite end to what Ido teaches. So his is full range of everything, and it seems like, whereas this is organized, and that appealed to me because I think we're all mathematical to a degree. It just depends on, certain how we learn in school and whether we had an emotional block to it. But I'm quite analytically minded, and I love looking at the mathematics of things. And when I can find that in movement, and what David teaches is there is an organized system that we can go through to learn to move better. And that's what I really like, because it felt more precise and like there's an end goal and markers to learn, things to know along the way if you are improving. And so that's been my focus, is like organized movement training as opposed to kind of chaotic one. And I think there's an absolute place for both. This is just the chapter of my life I'm in right now, is with this organized stuff, with the rope, with the pulses he does, and other things.
Yeah, of course. I think it goes back to like different ways, different people learn in different ways, don't they? And I am probably similar to yourself, and I like more structure and little rewards along the way, and what can I get to next, right? What's next after that?
Yeah.
Rather than, and I've only listened to a bit of Ido Portal stuff, but it's very like esoteric, and there's no like
it feels it, doesn't it? It does feel a bit, it's like very intellectual, but also quite open-ended at the same time. But there is absolute wisdom and gold there.
It was quite funny on the beginning of that podcast that he's talking to Andrew Huberman, and he actually admits at the beginning, he was like, I probably will not answer any of your questions today, but we'll try and get somewhere.
Yeah, that's literally what he said, didn't he? He said, I'm not going to answer any of your questions, but we'll try and get some. That was good.
So how far have you took the movement patterns from the rope now? I've seen some stuff on your Instagram, you're actually utilizing the kettlebells as well to go into that. I suppose we can talk about the school of biomechanics now that you've started to promote that a little bit more. What is that? Could you explain a bit about that, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. So literally, when I saw David move, and then I've tried to replicate him, and I've got the rope, I've got the pulsers, but my ankles was this issue that I was like, well, there's a missing link between me and David right now, because he's got strong feet, clearly, because he lives in barefoot shoes and sprints every day. So I was like, what's missing? So I did a few interviews with David, and I've hung out with him. I spent a few weeks with him in San Diego, and we messaged quite frequently. And I'd heard him say he used to roller skate around New York for like 7 years in rollerblades. He lived in rollerblades. And because they're like literally like casts, they're so firm, it'll give you strong quads, right? But your feet become weak because they're not actually doing any work really. And because they need to be moving to be working. So he got really weak feet, and he said he was on a beach in France, and it was Pebble Beach, and he couldn't walk on the beach. He had to crawl on his hands and knees because it was so painful. And I was like, well, my feet, I mean, they're not that extreme in terms of painful to walk across a beach, but I've got weak feet to a degree. So I was like, so I kept digging into it, and he said he got a Swiss ball, and he just would stand on it. He got obsessed with standing on it. And he said, what if I apply, because in martial arts, like, balance is one of the most important, like if you own the kind of, I'm not martial arts, so I can't necessarily verbalize it, but I can understand that you have to maintain balance and that center point. And if someone can get you off balance, and jiu-jitsu is the same, right? If they can get you off balance, they can have you. So you're fighting for that. So you're fighting to maintain that posture, that balance. And so he said, let's apply this to locomotion, which is the fight and the flight, right? So it's the two ends of the spectrum. People apply it to martial arts, staying in the center line. But so he got the Swiss boy. He said, let me become the number one coach or whatever on the study of balance within movement, because people will walk on a slack line or high line and stuff, but it's not really like obsessed with movement and applying it to. So he let me apply balance to locomotion. And so he got on a Swiss ball, and you think, okay, well, you could do Swiss ball, you could do all these, but there's something about the Swiss ball that it's literally a sphere, right? So it can go in all directions. It can go all 360 degrees, and wherever you're weak, it will go to. And this is what I mean, even jiu-jitsu, right? Take that as a metaphor. It's like you're searching to find the person's weak spot, and then you find it and you manipulate that. So the Swiss ball is literally like, if you've got strong quads, well, it might go backwards, and you might have weak hamstrings, or there's a very simplification, but wherever you're weak in the body, it will find. And then you might start to shake, which is kind of like this, I see it like the speed wobbles. If you're on a skateboard going down a hill and you're going too fast for what the axles and the bearings can take, then you start to shake. And so you could either, upgrade the bearings so you can maintain that speed or whatever. So when we're on the Swiss ball and we're trying to balance in different positions, I was able to find these shakes, and the more I did it, this was just from gleaming from David, was like, he spent a lot of time on the Swiss ball, so let me try spend a lot of time on the Swiss ball. I'd get these shakes, and the more I did it, the more over time the shakes would stop in certain positions where I used to shake loads. Now I don't shake anymore, and I feel a lot more stable in my hips and in my knees and
Right.
in my feet and ankles as well now, once I learned to balance standing on it. So through this seeking, using a stability object like the ball to challenge my stability, I'd get these shakes. The more I'd shake, the more that it would fade away eventually, and the more stable I'd feel in my body. So it became my goal now is to sort of seek and find any positions in my body, and you can use the ball or even just on the floor. I'll go on the floor now and just drive my left shoulder blade in, and I feel these like flutters, like little tremors inside the body, which you couldn't probably see visually, but I can feel it going on. And it, because you have to find the right threshold for your body. If the threshold, if it's too heavy or too much stress, the body locks up and the fascia and everything will tighten up. And it's like if you try and lift a really heavy weight, the body will lock up. But if you find the right weight, you can challenge it, but stay soft in the position, and you'll feel it shake.
Right.
And the more this was the strength training is like, if you've got a healthy body, you've got no injuries, you can strength train and it will help you, it will benefit you. And, obviously do it intelligently and how you do it. And you can do, but for me, like patterns of movement comes before strength, because if you're getting stronger, but you move stiff, well, it's just going to make you stiffer and stiffer.
Yeah.
But if you can move on the way that the body's kind of designed, and you can hit all these end ranges and get strong in these end ranges, well, then that's great. But if you don't have secure joints and a secure spine and foundations, and you do movement patterns, well, you can skip over because you're using momentum and movement patterns. I always think about the figure of 8, right? And say my top left, say I've got a bad left shoulder. Well, I consider that kind of the top left point of the figure of 8. Mm-hmm. And if I've got a bad right hip, well, that's kind of like the bottom right side of the figure of 8.
Yeah.
But I can skip past that because the momentum's coming, and I can use the other side of my body to skip past that. So, but when we get into stability work, we just find a position and stay in that position. And it could be my right hip. I need to activate it in some way, whether it's on my front, my back, kneeling on the Swiss ball, standing on the Swiss ball. I need to find a way to challenge the integrity of that joint, but where it's not too much that it locks up, and where it's not too little that it doesn't stimulate it.
Yeah. So could you use kind of, just so it's clear in my head, you could use maybe the plank position, and as you're holding a plank, whatever's unstable will start to shake. Is that what you're on about? Yeah.
That's exactly the, like, where people might have felt and experienced it before.
Yeah.
Yes, the plank is a great way to do that. And so what I call them is like subtle planks. So rather than just on all fours where you kind of bilaterally tense, I'll go onto one arm, and I'll allow, and with the knees on the Swiss ball, and when you're on one arm, because that can move, well, then if you're unstable, it will find the shakes. If you're on the floor, it might take you a lot longer to get there, but because that's highlights it way easier, and you find them a lot easier. So I do that. Exactly. The plank is it. So we want to find mini planks within the body. So like I say, I'll lie on my back and I'll drive the scapula into the floor, and it will lift my chest a bit.
Yeah.
And that's like a mini plank, right? But we're not bridging elbows to feet. We're bridging like shoulder blade to hip or something. So it's a smaller bridge, but this allows us to work on the core. And the more we can, and this is what I'm learned from Chris and what I'm experiencing again, the stronger and more stable the core, well, then everything, and this would be so good for jiu-jitsu, right? Because it's all levers and anchors.
Yeah.
If I've got a weak shoulder and I'm trying to anchor out here, that's going to lock up and tighten. No wonder we've got stiff shoulders. But if this is like a real strong, stable foundation, the longer it will allow me to reach and have strength at that range.
Yeah.
So the more we can strengthen the core through these stability tasks, which was my challenge, is like, okay, stability seems foundational before we get to patterns, before we get to strength, although it is a type of strength, of course. But when I say strength, I mean traditional strength training. This is like a different type of strength training. I call it lateral strength training, whereas we're not going eccentric and concentric where we're working the length of the muscle and we're lengthening and contracting. We're testing it like laterally, like this way. Yeah. So it's like the fight that maybe whether it's the cross fibers or the fascia, or, I try not to get too into the physiology of it, because I think we can get lost and it can get too intellectualized. I just try to like show people, let people feel it, and then explain it.
you take that plank a step further and go on to maybe gymnastic rings. They take you that way. Would that be the same idea?
Yeah. And have you ever tried it and felt shakes on gymnastic rings?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So whatever gives you the shakes, do that for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And notice how the shakes get less and less, and find a new place.
Yeah.
And it's literally just exploring your body, finding positions that give you shakes, writing it down, coming back to that position, and either upping the intensity or the weight, or moving on to a new position. But this is literally is for me, is it feels like it's cement, might be the wrong word because that makes it sound like you're getting stiff, but it feels like it's cementing my joints in terms of like they feel a lot more secure and stable. But of course it's like it's a fluid cement. It allows you to move with, once it's stable, it allows you to be it. The thing is, have you ever tried to get more flexible and you've just stretched every day?
Yeah.
And you've not really made much progress.
Yeah. Because you're not, is it because you're not strong at those range of motions? Is that
because you're not stable? Yeah. It's stable, strong, however you want to deem it. It's like rigidity is false strength. So when we're tight and rigid, it's because the body's locking up to protect the instability. So it's not real strength. So when we're really strong, we're supple and mobile. And so
is that where the fluidity comes in? Because I wanted to ask you, you've got stability, fluidity, strength.
Exactly.
The fluidity then is being able to move within that.
Yeah. So that's the patterns or the sequencing.
Right. Okay.
So the fluidity comes in, but that built on a foundation of incredible stability, or incredible, like, if it's like with a tent, right? If you put tent poles up and you just put the poles near the tent and it's windy, well, it doesn't really secure it much. Yeah. But the further you put the poles away from the tent, the more secure the tent's going to be, because it's got this wide base.
Yeah.
So the more stable we are, the wider a base we have to begin strength training or endurance sports, whatever it is, just the more stable and the less gaps in our joints. And the thing is, it could be the meridian system. Like, I've been looking at the Chinese meridian system of like the bladder is the one that runs down each side of the spine,
right?
You know, and that their energy lines. So I'm thinking like, oh, it's my ribs, or it's my shoulder, my scapula, my lat, my obliques. But I just like the meridian system as well, because it's connected energies of line, or like, rather than think of it as hamstring, that's the bladder down the back of the leg, and it connects to so it's like there's other ways of looking at it that I'm exploring, and maybe that can get too complicated. Yeah. But the Western anatomy and even the Western approach to this is just, I just feel like there's just, all of us have probably had experiences where we've paid physios or coaches and not really felt much experience, and we're not mad at them. They're just doing their job.
Yeah.
But I just think there's much more simpler and consistent answers we can get that puts a bit more responsibility on us, because it's not like I can prescribe this that easily. I'm trying to, with the School of Biomechanics, is create a system that will help as many people in one way as possible. But of course, it has to be open to you exploring, because if we're all just doing planks, but you know, some of us have got right shoulder issues, some of us got left hip issues, and we're all just doing planks.
Yeah, it's not specific.
But if you know what to look for within your body, and you know what the shakes feels like, and your right shoulder, you do the same thing, you don't get it, but then your left, you do. Well, then just focus on that left in that position, rather than there's got to be a bit of personal responsibility with this stuff, but it's not out of anyone's reach to understand what's happening.
So how does that program work? Did they get like a bit of a syllabus, a structure for a few weeks, and then they kind of will take ownership of it a little bit more and be more?
Yeah, exactly. So I've basically used a program. It's like an app, but it's a web page. But it's every week a new session opens up. So they join, and then it's schoolofbiomechanics.com, and if you want to join. But then there's the syllabus. It's 4 weeks of stability training, but I would recommend people do 3 months of stability training. I've done 3 months before I'm moving on right now. I'm in like month 4, and I'm still doing it because I feel the benefits. I want to do a year of this, to be honest, but I don't want, because it's a monthly subscription, I don't want people to feel like I'm making them do 3 months of something before I'm allowed. So after a month, then fluidity opens up, and they can do these kettlebell patterns and the rope and really like kettlebell, because we just want to grease the groove. And there's just a few key patterns that I find really good for really getting the full length of the lat, the obliques, just a few things that are, just movement patterns as well. Yeah. And then it moves on to strength training, which I'm sort of in the midst of developing right now, what I deem as like intelligent strength training where it's efficient, it's not overtaxing, it's in alignment with the body's natural corners rather than rigid and square. And so it's essentially it's a 3-month program over 3 modules, and every month is a different module, and every week builds on the last week. So it's systematized in a way, but I would encourage people to do it for longer, but it's up to them whether they just take it and do it in their own time.
Just before we I won't take up too much more of your time, Tim, but I'm curious about how your training works. Do you even call it training? What is your kind of...
It's absolutely, I do, it varies a bit, but at the moment I'm just loving the stability work still, because I feel like it's just, this is a really good point, actually. I think that resonates highly for me. Is I'm looking for practices, like I have a faith in a higher power, right? For me, that's God, but it can be however it is, creation's design, whether it's evolution or whatever. There's a certain design within nature that when we're aligned with that, things are easier. Like there's less maintenance that needs to be done. Now, when you think of strength training, that's a lot of maintenance, like to get stronger, and then you have to maintain it, because if you don't train for 2 weeks, you lose it quite quickly. Whereas something like the Swiss ball balance training or stability training or the rope, you can put in a lot of training in a short space of time, and that will last you for years and years. Like a child learns to stand on their feet, they learn to walk, and then it's not until they're 70 or 80 and then their balance starts to go. Right? That lasts 60, 70 years. Of course, some people it doesn't even go. Some people it's better. So if we can put in 3 months on a Swiss ball and get 10 years of benefits from it, why not do that? Whereas if you put in 3 months of strength training, you might get a month or 2 of benefit after you stop. Like I'm looking for the practices that take low maintenance, but they last, and wet cause these rites of passage. And so when I find these, I just dial into them. That's what I did with the rope. I did 1 or 2 years of the rope hardcore, and now I still play with it because there's still more stuff to be gleaned from it. But I don't have to. I can not do it for 10 years, and I still know what this feels like.
Of course.
You know? Whereas with the Swiss ball, it's the same thing. Like I can leave it, and I can have security in my system for maybe 5-10 years. But I know how to. If you can stand on that thing, and you do that a few times every year, you think when you're 80 you're going to fall going down the stairs. Like it's a lot less likely if you're able to do that every year. Like,
course,
and it's not, and it's something that when you train it, you can listen to a podcast. You're not having to focus on it. The body is solving itself. It's self-organizing, which is beautiful, because it's like, it's not that hard work really. It's just finding the right difficulty where it's not too easy that you're not being challenged, but it's not too hard that it's frustrating. So you find the right difficulty of position, you hold the position, you can focus on the task, you can breathe, or you can listen to something, whatever it is. You can even sit on your phone in some positions, but you let the body self-organize and you get out the body's way, you know. And so there's practices like that when I find them, like the aha moment comes in. It came with the rope, it came with the Swiss ball, and I'm just gung-ho on that. So I'm mostly doing the Swiss ball. I'm doing some floor, the mini planks that I'm talking about. My shoulder feels a lot better since doing that. And then the kettlebells, super lightweight, and just finding the patterns that make me feel explosive, and I can feel the sequencing in, because that's what the kettlebell is all about, right? It's when we're doing even just hip thrust, or the kettlebell swing. There's the drive, and then there's the flow to the whole thing. And so like kettlebell helps you to tune in to this kind of flow, and you find the positions that relate to running, to jumping, to throwing, whatever. And I'm just dialing into them. So it's a work in progress, and I'm developing as we go. There's 100 members in the School of Biomechanics right now. So this is the beta run through. So we're testing it all out, and I'm getting everyone to post their results. But so far, people are finding the shakes on the ball and they're loving it. And I'm still enjoying it too. So that's my main training at the moment. But long-term wise, you saw me breakdancing the other day. Like, this stuff is just for me to do now, so that I can I want to do free running. I want to do rock climbing. I want to do mountain running. I want to do breakdancing. I love the human body and what it can do. Maybe jiu-jitsu, I'll have a stint of my life, a chapter doing that. It's really been on the horizon. but I've been hesitant to do jiu-jitsu because I just thought I feel fragile. And that's a lot of us probably feel fragile. And it's like, it's not a nice feeling. If we can solve feeling fragile and we can move without inhibition, like the child does, then we can, what do we want to do? The world's our oyster. And so I've been working to solve that fragility. I've made huge leaps and bounds. I'm not fully there, but I'd say I'm past 50% now from where I was. And I'm just going to continue to do this. And then hopefully that becomes the world's my oyster, and I can try what I want. And at that point, I can pick anything new up at a much faster rate because I've got a strong core and I understand movement, the foundation of all movement at all levels. So if I did pick up jiu-jitsu, I would want to put a stopwatch on it, and just like, how fast can I get to blue belt or something, and just like.
There's a team in America called 10th Planet. I don't know if you'd have heard of him.
Eddie Bravo's, yeah.
And a lot of them, the practitioners who he's got on his team, come from a breakdancing background. And for some, well, not for some reason, you've just explained the reason why, they seem to excel and understand the movement straight away. So a lot of them got black belts in a really short period of time. Yeah. Similar to your point, Tim, because they probably understand the way the body moves more. They recognize patterns.
Yeah. Breakdancing is so, like, the learning curve is tough. Like, so when you can like manipulate your body and know where you are at all times, and then still be able to the timing of breakdancing, like you're on your back, you bounce and you land, but you have to be able to bounce again. There's just so much going on. And on top of that, there's the core strength that they must have to begin from, that it doesn't surprise me when I remember hearing that years ago, and I was just like, not surprised. Like, it's cool. And it's quite exciting if I get to that chapter.
Yeah, definitely needs to give it a go. So for me to kind of like summarize and get it right in my head, what we're talking about is kind of a version of general physical preparedness, aren't we? So I'm not talking about just like lifting weights and getting strong in the bench and all that kind of stuff, but you're not being too specific. You're being quite general with your training, but getting the body physically prepared so then it can just take to any task or any sport that you chuck at it.
Bingo.
Right?
That's exactly it. Yeah, general preparedness. Just working out the kinks, working on my weaknesses, so that a rising tide lifts all boats or whatever. Like, we just fix it. We're working the weaknesses, man. Like, face those demons in that closet. And it's this whole, like, I'm reading a book now from 1884. Like, it was one of the first strength training books recorded from like modern era.
All right.
And he's just talking so much in that about how all the sports people are doing, leave them one-sided, like baseball and cricket, whatever. And then he's saying like rugby is like much more both sides kind of thing. And jiu-jitsu is obviously both sides utilized. Like, you've got to be strong, and you can't have a weak side. And he's saying how this builds people with a lot of imbalance. And he's also talking, one thing I also really gleaned from it was how much he talks about people having a strong walk. Like, we all want to run fast. We don't really want to do walking, but it's this humble challenges. Like, can you walk 4 miles in an hour? Like, that's a fucking zip on. Like, yeah, you could run it easily, but can you walk it? And this is, you have to have strong feet to walk it. You can run it with weak feet, right? Because you can use your hips and your hip. And this is why people have, hip flexors, and you can use a lot more of that. But when you're walking, you have to push up the ball of your foot. And so I'm learning so much from this. It's like, like focus, take it down a notch and get good at that level. And I'm sure this can apply. You must have moments with jiu-jitsu with the same thing, right? Work on the foundations and get really good at them and build. But we don't apply it we just become so arrogant, I guess is the word, in society, because we want to run. We see our friend running a 10K in 50 minutes and we want to chase that goal. And we an Instagram live, we want to chase muscle ups, and we can't even do 10 chin ups. And there's just certain things that the more we can find humility is literally a shortcut. Like, if you want to get your ceilings here and you're trying to chase it that way, but it's like, take this step, build the foundations, or I call it like a key. It's the master key. Is like, how can I be more humble here and tune into the subtlety of where my personal threshold is, which isn't, and it's so hard to say, because it's like, we can undertrain as well, but it depends what we're training. But anyway, this non-dominant training, which they go on about in this book, and I think that's so important, is just with the rope, which teaches us it, and these other practices, we're built to have these two sides. And it's like, if you imagine a tennis game with two players, and you've got one really good player and one really shitty player, and they're playing another two, well, they're just going to focus on, they're going to find the weak link, hit all the balls to the weak player, and it's going to be an easy win for them. But if they can get, if you can get the weak player to be like a medium player, then you're going to be able to go way further. With the whole team's going to be much better, right? So it's like with these practices, the more we can work on our weaknesses, it's just like bringing up that's part of us, that's that weak link. And it just, I mean, I don't need a metaphor for people to know why to do it, but it just feels like the more we can focus on weaknesses and build them up, the whole system just glows like I think beyond we've ever comprehended. So that's my focus and journey and mission right now.
That's amazing. I think that kind of brings us back full circle almost at what we spoke about at the beginning. Was you have all the fancy tricks and everything, but having that humility to bring yourself back down to maybe just whatever your chosen activity is, but with the rope, just really getting into that. It's not the mind muscle connection, is it? But like getting more into your body as to why that works and why it's so valuable and so feels so good as well.
Yeah. It's training a muscle that we haven't been taught to train. Like no one in PE, physical education class, like they just play the sport and then it's a crapshoot, right? Whoever makes it through successfully becomes professional. And it's like, well, how about we learn how we should move in the first? Let's train children to have good patterns of movement so that they don't have to have much correction when they're older. Like the rope should be in every school from like 10 years, you know, to even just 10 to 12. If they all did that, then the rest of their teenage years would they'd move way better. But it might be a journey till that happens. But yeah, it's having that humility for sure is cool.
Is that something you're trying to approach? Maybe getting younger kids involved in the movement stuff. Is that something you're actively doing?
I wouldn't say I'm actively doing it. I mean, maybe that should be a focus. I'm still just trying to verify everything I'm doing with people that are keen to try it. But no doubt, at some stage in the future, if people approach me or that I'm bored of the chapter I'm on, and that might be something to focus on. It's like, right, how can we actually take this to schools? How can we prove that this is something that they should be trying? And that could come in the near future for sure.
Yeah, it's always funny when you see little kids, especially toddlers, and they squat, don't they? They sit in a squat, in a perfect squat, and they're like someone of our age or whatever who isn't necessarily training or used to getting in that position struggles to, just because of there's a wider conversation there about sitting in chairs and all that kind of stuff. But it's mad, isn't it, that they lose
that's a big
patterns.
It is, and that's a big part of it. Is I think the softness, and this isn't to poo-poo like beds and shoes, because they all have their place.
Yeah.
Because of this softness, our bodies become hard, and it's not. We've lost stability because of that firmness, and that's why I think the Swiss ball is like overly soft, that the body has to like suddenly go, whoa, this is too much. What can I do to balance myself? And so that's like the overshoot one way. And then the other shoot is like wearing barefoot or wearing no shoes and walking on hard floor. Then you have to soften that way as well. So with workout, one of the biggest things I learned from him, Bosu means both sides utilized. He's the one that invented the Bosu ball.
Right,
But it means both sides utilized. And not only is it the left and the right, it's the hard and the soft, you know. The fast and the slow is looking at both ends of the practice. And if I practice both, well, my middle becomes way stronger, right? So ultimate soft and then the hard is the ultimate firm, and we train both. And so then when I'm wearing trainers and running down the street, I'm so much more confident.
Yeah, superb. Just before we go, Tim, what was the name of that book that you're reading? The strength training book.
How to get strong and how to stay so.
How to get strong.
William Blakey, and it's really cool. I got it on
William Blakely or Blakey.
Blakey, Blikkie, because William Blake is like a famous author. Yeah. This is like a different William Blakey. But that book, it simplifies it. It's quite good. It gives the training program for young men, which I'm actually doing at the moment from it, which is just really simple, using dumbbells. That is 1/15 your body weight. So it's 5 kilos a hand for me, right? 75 kilos, 5 kilos a hand. Like you go to the gym and every week you want to build a higher weight or something like that. And I'm like, how about just maintenance? Like just do maintenance. And, because that's, like I say, I'm trying to find practices that don't need maintenance, but strength training is something that you maintain. And I don't mind. I enjoy strength training, when I've got the energy, whatever, to do so. And the more I can use a humble weight to do it, the more it's not going to take from the rest of my day, the rest of my week, whatever. So 5 kilos a hand, and that's all I need. And you do 50 reps of each. And it's got a little training program that I'm enjoying in that, and it's focused on hitting all sides. So we're not just getting rounded shoulders, helping the posture and stuff. So it's a cool book. It's very simplified strength training, but I actually sometimes, like I say, the modules are stability, fluidity, strength. Well, I was like, I haven't done strength training in 2 or 3 years. Let me go back to almost the start and see where it's come from, because it can get so convoluted and complicated. How was someone looking at the body before they had all this Instagram? Gyms weren't on every street corner. How were they thinking about the body? Even looking at Bruce Lee's training and stuff, people used to run 1 mile a day or 2 miles maximum. They didn't do all this 10K half marathon. That stuff's okay. And I fucking love it when, it's a chapter and a stint that I might revisit, but 2 miles is a healthy distance to run, but we want to run further. We want to run faster.
Easily maintainable as well, isn't it?
It's easily made. Yeah. So it's looking at these. Oh yeah. You don't need to go far or fast and just, you can enjoy just feeling healthy every day. Literally learning not to overtrain has been one of the longest journeys of my physical career, and I'm still still got a long way to go, but it's been a big one.
Something I'm currently in the process of getting my head around now as well, because sorry, I know we've got an hour, Tim. Sorry, I won't take up too much more of your time.
No worries. No, it's all right.
Having that understanding that you don't have to come out of the gym broken and beat down and
huge. That's so huge, so big. Yeah,
I know. And I think it's another one of Pavel Tsatsouline's protocols that, say you could do 10 reps to failure, or you just do sets of 5, so you never beat down, you never go into failure, and then you could just do that the day after, and then if you had to do a set of 20, you could actually physically do it. You know what I mean? I
like that approach, man.
Yeah,
I like that. I know people disagree with that for building strength and muscle, but I think it works, man. The body likes that tempo and that amount. I'm going to explore that now. I literally just bought his book, Strong. Was it not Strong First? That's his thing. Him and someone else wrote a book about easy strength. I think
it was Dan John, wasn't it? Did he write it with Dan John?
Yeah. So have you read that book?
I think it's in my Kindle library. I've probably
I put it on my Kindle.
Not read it religiously,
So after that other old school book, I thought, what's the next? And that feels like a healthy next for me, because I like Pavel's, philosophy and stuff. So I'm going to check that next.
Yeah, it's cool. Dan John's another good one to visit if you've not come across much of Dan John's work.
Yeah, okay, I haven't. I'll check it.
It's fantastic. Yeah, there's a book. I always get it confused with the film. There's a film called Never Back Down, but I think it's Never Let Go. Dan John's book, Never Let Go, and it's not written like a fitness book. Do this, do that. It's written in a narrative and a story.
The audio's gone for me there. I don't know what's happened.
Hello, can you hear me?
There you go. Yeah, you're back.
So Dan John's book, Never Let Go. It's written in a narrative. So rather than a reps and sets prescribing you a workout, he tells a story around where he learned this workout from, why he recommends it, and all this. It's a really good book. Yeah.
Cool, man. I'll put that on my Kindle to list. Yeah. Well,
anyway, Tim, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on this morning. It's been a fantastic little chat. I've really enjoyed it, and thanks very much.
Thanks, David. No, I appreciate you having me on, mate. And if people want to check me out, timshieff.sob or schoolofbiomechanics.com.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the sun, and
cheers.
Catch you soon, mate. Cheers.
Thank you, David.